Did you ever sit and ponder, sit and wonder, sit and think why we're here and what this life is all about? It's a problem that has driven many brainy men to drink. It's the weirdest thing they've tried to figure out. About 1,000 different theories all the scientists can show, but never yet have proved a reason why. With all we've thought and all we're taught, why all we seem to know is we're born, we live a while, and then we die.
Yeah.
Life's a very funny proposition after all. Imagination,
yes.
jealousy, hypocrisy, and all.
Imagination, jealousy, hypocrisy, and all. 3 meals a day. A whole lot to say. But I gotta say, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's going to be, yes, a little bit of the circus of life. You want to call it that. But we're actually going to be talking about the circus. That'll be very fun. We did a lot of heavy lifting last night. I definitely have a lot of great response from last night's show that we'll get around to either at some point tomorrow in some, I don't know. I like doing some off-topic stuff with Jay when he's in. But then there's also Friday night where we can just go through leftovers. That's it. Leftovers. Mishkambrul. We'll be able to go and put a lot of things together, make ourselves a June gumbo. Anyhow, how was your day? This Wednesday was hot and steamy, muggy. Boy, oh boy. But I think we have a good one tonight. We have a guest coming on. Her name is Melodee Lenz. And she's got an incredible story to tell. She's done a lot. Her professional career has been really, really thrilling. I can't wait to talk about this. Spent most of her life, she's done a lot of great things in media and movies and also in the circus on the major league level, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. So I want to talk about the crazy details of her travels, stories from clown college. She actually went there. Maybe we can get some circus lingo out of her. And of course, the bigger thing there too is dealing with the changing American cultural and legal landscape of being in the circus and what it used to be and what it is now and what are the misconceptions. I hope that you all enjoy tonight. It'll be a nice summary thing, I think. Because I don't know about you, I've never been to the circus, but in my head, especially all the things that I used to see in the Looney Tunes commercial, cartoons and everything else, I always see circus tents and in being in the same category as the summer carnivals and the summer fairs, and that's just, I don't know. I think the heat, the sunshine, the hay, the smell of animal shit, it all comes together in one big, giant, awesome Wednesday night. So I hope you guys and gals are just tucked in, and that's that. Have yourself the cold drinks all night, please. Seltzer and lime. Make sure it is ice cold, and we're going to be able to enjoy ourselves. I promise you that. First, a little bit of business up front and some grab bagging. I want to thank my sponsors, BlueMonsterPrep.com. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time of year to go and check out what you may have, you may be needing a little bit more of, especially as we get closer to election time, and who knows? Because it's not just about going out there and winning the vote. Well, anything could happen. I think everybody is expecting something to happen. What that something is, we don't know. What we don't know. But what you can do is know that you can get your energy, at least in a very limited sense, sorted out with a solar power generator from Blue Monster Prep. Go and check that out over there. Anything that is food and water related, first aid, communication, it really is in your best interest, in your family's best interest. It's insurance. It's tangible insurance that you can own, just like owning a little gold, owning a little silver. You can also find that on the affiliates page on quitefrankly.tv. Our wonderful friend Tony Arterburn has helped a lot of members of this audience own their first ounces of silver. So go check that out. It's all there. Thank you, Blue Monster. Thank you, Pat and Gina. You're the best. Use promo code Frankly. And no shipping for you. Okay. Anything else I have? Jay Gulanello tomorrow. I'm going to actually be on Jeremy Ryan Slate's show on Friday afternoon. And then Friday night, I'm here with Matt. But on Monday, July 1st, we have Chris Ann Hall that's coming on to do a SCOTUS review, because this was a big week for the Supreme Court. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of different ways that people are interpreting it. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it a mix of both? This is part of what was going to be talked about on Monday. The Supreme Court tosses a case over Biden coercion of social media. This is the Missouri v. Biden stuff. Supreme Court on Wednesday tossed a case claiming that the Biden administration unlawfully coerced social media companies into removing content and banning users based on political views. In a 6-3 decision, the court found that the plaintiffs did not have standing to sue, as opposed to tossing the case on merit. Okay, so I guess you have to find an injured party. I don't know. That's just like the vast majority of election fraud cases, which didn't make it past the lower courts. Clearly, it was easier to punt this one than to focus on the mountain of evidence that the Biden administration and the U.S. intelligence agencies were directly pressuring social media platforms to censor free speech disfavorable to the regime. GOP attorneys general in Louisiana and Missouri, along with 5 social media users, filed the underlying lawsuit claiming that the U.S. government officials exceeded their authority by pressuring social media platforms to moderate content. The individual plaintiffs include Harvard Martin's Kuldorf, Stanford's Jay Bhattacharya, as well as Gateway pundit owner Jim Hoft. I mean, there were members of Congress that were swept up in this. The law sought to prevent social media companies from banning users based on their political views. You want to talk about injured parties. You want to talk about standing. What about everybody that was injured because they were not allowed to get a more balanced view of certain policies, whether they be medical or otherwise? There's a lot. There's a lot out there. But of course, you can't really expect the Supreme Court to do anything useful 90% of the time. 90%. That's among the other things that we'll talk about on Monday with Chris Ann Hall. I told her, I said, with everything that's happening, give us what you think is the top 3 most consequential. Definitely can't wait to see what happens, what she says about Chevron, and that'll be pretty big, because you know that most of the weight that we live under right now is sent down directly from agencies that don't have the power to write law, but they're just given carte blanche. So we'll get to that on Monday. Make sure you tune in for it. It's Independence Day week. All right, well, this happened. I'm sure you heard about it. My district over here in New York was the subject of a lot of drama and cringe nonsense, but Jamal Bowman, he lost by over 20 points, and he responds this way. Representative Jamal Bowman may have lost big in his Democratic primary in New York, but he's looking to take the party with him. If his concession speech is any indication, Bowman, a member of the so-called squad who has run a controversial campaign on top of a series of legislative controversies, was handily beaten by Westchester County Executive Steve Lattimore. Steve? In a primary for New York's 16th congressional district, with 88% of the vote in as of Wednesday morning, according to the Washington Post, Lattimore, George, I know him as, led Bowman by 58.4 to 41.6. So it was the kind of drubbing one usually expects from representatives under indictment, say, or someone who got caught with a camera with a prostitute or anything like that. Oh, that's the Western Journal talking. Anyway, he's very upset, and a lot of people are very upset. What's her name? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wrote a little something and went to go tag Jamal Bowman, but tagged the wrong Jamal Bowman, which was just some random girl. I don't know what the hell that was all about. But that makes this look even worse all this time. Like, this is from over the weekend. They did a little hype video together. No, that's not what I was looking for. This one, little hype video they did together. You see this?
What's up, everybody? We are just a few days out till the election day, our primary election on Tuesday, June 25th. But the good news is that the polls are open right now, and we are here for our brother, Jamal Bowman.
Stop clapping your hands, you dumb toddler. Anyway, she's mad. And I saw Bernie Sanders was really mad, too. Even Cynthia Nixon. Cynthia Nixon was so mad. Bowman, she said, this is from Sex and the City, Cynthia Nixon. Bowman is the last congressperson of color in a New York district not wholly in New York City. Let's be clear. The record $20 million spent against him did not come from Democrats in this Democrat primary, but from anti-abortion, anti-climate change, anti-worker, far-right Republicans. You do the math. Listen, nobody wanted you either, Cynthia. And you're so white, you're translucent. Nobody wanted you either. You're still wanting to be governor. My God. I'm telling you, that's what they've been saying. Donald Trump supporters are there. They're holding up Latimer, AIPAC, this and that. Well, listen, I mean, he's all in. He's always been all in for Israel, Latimer. That's all he talks about when you sit next to him at Lenny's Bagels. That's all he talks about. It's Israel, like it's a neighborhood in Rye or something like that. So, but listen, money comes from here and there. I don't know. I guess they're tracking it. Who the hell knows? Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Latimer uses Donald Trump as a punching bag, so it's really not that. There's no real difference. Just one person is, cross-eyed and whitish, and the other guy is black and jumps around like a toddler, and whatever the fuck. I don't care. I'm not getting represented, so who cares? Anyway, here's another one for you. Nearly half of American electric vehicle owners want to go back to gas-powered cars, a study concludes. Significant share of Americans who own an electric vehicle have buyer's remorse. According to new data, McKinsey & Co.'s Mobility Consumer Pulse for 2024 released this month found that 46% of EV owners in the U.S. said that they were very likely to switch back to owning a gas-powered vehicle in their next purchase. The high percentage of Americans who want to make a switch even surprised the consulting firm. I didn't expect that. The head of McKinsey's Center for Future Mobility, Philip Kamshoff, told Automotive News, I thought once an EV buyer, always an EV buyer. Well, I don't know why you would think that. Especially since all of the reasons for going EV is gone already. But I'm glad that the Center for Mobility was on the case, because of course I think this is all about limiting mobility, the whole electronic vehicle thing. Of course, unless you're never really concerned about leaving your town, like you're going to Pathmark and then the cemetery and Pathmark again and back, like my grandfather was doing toward the end of his life. That's just it. Because other than that, what the hell? I mean, even that. I mean, your car can always just spontaneously combust in the driveway, start a massive chemical fire. There's always that. But I'm sure that this didn't surprise me at all, because aside from it being a ridiculous inconvenience and sometimes a deadly inferno of a novelty, people are starting to realize that this is definitely a part of deindustrialization, limiting mobility, like I said, and to remote access every aspect of a person's vehicle. That doesn't make me feel comfortable at all. I got this message, this email from a listener from California about a week or two ago, too. Listen to this. Said, Frank, I got this message from their so-and-so in California. They wanted her to be part of a survey. Did you know that each time you fill up your vehicle with gas, a small portion of what you pay goes to repair roads and bridges? As Californians drive more hybrid and electric vehicles, the money for critical infrastructure repairs from the gas tax will be less and less. Our partner, Caltrans, is planning for the future by testing a road charge. An idea to pay fees on the miles we drive instead of the gallons that we buy to support road maintenance. How about get all the tens of millions of non-citizens you have in your small little Californian country sucking off the tit, taking away all the resources that you could just very easily maintain the roads with. How about you get things in order over there? Clean shit out a little bit. But no. And this was the main reason for getting on your hybrids. You're saving money and you're saving the planet. That was the big one. Will you help participate in this? And you can earn up to $400 for the survey. Report the miles that you accumulate in your car for 6 months. Pay road charge fees every month. Get gas tax credits on gas used. And complete 2 surveys, blah, 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 blah. So much for hybrids. Like I said, they'd have more than enough money to maintain the roads if they weren't wiping the ass of 15 million illegal aliens that they probably have there alone. Plus, we already started seeing this happen in places like Portland, Oregon, many years ago. It was really something else. Like so much incentivization to get people to get into solar power and hybrid vehicles and all that stuff. And when they realized that they were missing out on a lot of tax money, then they started talking about mileage taxes, just because if the tires are meeting the asphalt, that's going to mean wear and tear. So there you go. Ridiculous. But we'll see who goes along with that. If they even have the will to resist that out there anymore. Okay, ladies and gents, let's get this thing started, shall we? I'll be right back, and when we come back, I'm going to introduce to you a friend of mine, and frankly, she's one of you as well. Her name is Melodee Lenz. Don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for the time tonight.
Jesus.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!
A story herself. Her name is Melodee, and I got a little bit of a bio over here. You got to take a listen to this, and then we're going to give her a buzz. According to the U.S. Census, there is only one Melodee Lenz, and only one person could have pulled off living 5 different lives in 4 decades. She is a 5-time Telly Award winner as a producer, writer, voice actress, and television puppeteer. She was the voice of several characters on top-rated Cartoon Network shows and video games. Got to talk about that at some point. Melodee ran away with the circus in her 30s and was the only female clown in the big touring unit of the greatest show on earth, Ringling Brothers and the Barnum and Bailey Circus. A published author of the hilarious Living on Planet Earth, a survival guide for the confused volunteer, a stunt performer, dancer, and writer, voice actor for the Kid Craddock morning show. I know that name. I know Kid Craddock. The name, not the guy. Top-selling downloaded comedy skit compilation. She reigns from the big state of Texas and loves the Quite Frankly family. Well, let's call her right now.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail.
That shouldn't happen. Well, that shouldn't happen. That. Again. Melodee?
Hello.
Okay, yes. Thank God.
You scared the hell out of me, Melodee.
I know. I scared the hell out of myself just now. So.
Well, it's so great to have you. You know, you called in once before, and you've called in quite a few times, but one time you called in to drop that it's not a tidbit, it's a big thing about you is your time in the circus. You dropped that on us one night. I think when we were talking about that there is a town in Florida that is really made up of mostly retired carnies and people from the circus and just people that worked in that. Was that the night that you called in about that subject?
Yeah, it was, because there was a lot of people saying, "Oh no, that's not true," and I'm like, "Oh no, that is very true. It is very true."
Well, what's the name of that town again? And are you on speakerphone by some chance?
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, Frank. Is if it sounds like crap, because you know what, it sounds like crap. I already know. Okay, cool. Hang on one second. Let me check this thing. I'm going to switch it over to the regular ass phone. Hang on one second.
Okay.
All right. Okay, take these things out. Can you hear me?
I hear you a lot better, yes.
Okay. Stupid earbuds.
Who
needs them?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Those are terrible.
They're the worst. They're the worst. Every time I'm like, I'm going to go hands-free. But no, just leave them alone, kids. Okay. Yeah, the town, okay, so check it out. Sarasota is where the circus people are, all right? Mm-hmm. Sarasota, Florida. But there's a little town that's right over there. Like Sarasota's a big one, right? I would say that's the big one. But then there's a little bitty town where, and it kind of predates that. And it is, oh my God, don't do it, Mel. It is, hang on. Thinking. The guy that night said it, and it's right outside of Sarasota.
Well, I can always
look on a map.
I can always look it up again, because I'm sure we're going to get around to it. The whole point was, this was a night that you let us all know that you didn't just have a loose understanding of this. This was part of your life, and I want you to start from the beginning. The circus stories here. Now, it was your time in the circus, as you ran away with the circus in your 30s. So what were you doing prior to that? Tell us about your family. Was there anybody in the circus there? How did this become an option for you?
Okay, so, well, I've always been, I have a crazy life, but I've always been in entertainment, okay? And when I say always, I mean really like from the early on. I'm adopted, and my family that adopted me just kind of knew I was weird. And I was always thinking, this is the really spooky part. I was always thinking about living on a circus train. Where that came from, anybody's guess, okay? Because I mean, my dad was in the military. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. They're like, well, we got a kid out of a grab bag, so what do you expect, right? Mm. So I was kind of discovered early on for having like some physical gifts, and then I was put into a lot of commercials in the early 80s and in a lot of dance competitions and stuff like that.
What kind of physical gifts are you talking about? Like being
I can mimic
flexible?
Almost anything. Yeah, like so if I saw, let's say, if I was watching the Olympics when I was a kid, right? And I saw Mary Lou Retton out there in her leotard doing some stuff, going around on the bar or whatever. I would just go outside and try that out. And I would just do it until I nailed it, And so I put on my first pair of ice skates, and I was just like off to the races. You know what I mean? Dance, I became a professional tap dancer by like the age of 8. So now I was dumber than a box of wet hair, okay, as far as mentally goes. but physically, man, I had that in the bag, all right? So, and I was funny. I was always trying to be the funniest person and all of that. I was a fat kid, fat kids are funny. And you have to survive, especially in the 80s when it was like, I mean, I look back at pictures and I'm like, that really wasn't that. I mean, it was fat, but today.
Oh, no, not in today's standards. I had a couple of friends back,
dude.
even growing up in the 90s, I had a couple of friends that, we always, they were the heavier ones of us all.
Yeah.
Then I look back and I realize, oh my God, I wouldn't even consider them husky compared to what the hell is going, But anyway, so you're physically gifted. You're adopted.
So,
you start going. You have some time in commercials. So tell us a little bit about the spookiness here. Like, where does the circus come from?
Well, it wouldn't be until many, many, many years later that I found out that my biological family were not only in the circus, but were kind of like, a big deal. So within it, so my biological great-great-grandfather was it was Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, human not. So he was the contortionist that, they pushed out there. He actually makes an appearance in an old W.C. Fields short, which is one of the more famous ones. It's The Golfer. And so you'll see him like kind of roll on and roll off, like literally, and like he's like rolling like a wheel.
The human knot.
Wow. He was called the human knot. Now his wife, who would have been my biological great grandmother, she was also a circus performer as well, and did a lot of aerial stuff and trick riding, horse trick riding, stuff like that. They really kind of did it all, sort of. So then, you've got one biological grandfather founded like Icecapades, which was also affiliated with Ringling Brothers. So, that kind of drew attention to the ice skates thing, how I put on a pair of those and was like, it was very, very strange. Because, you think nurture versus nature, right? And there's just so many genetic things that you just can't, I guess you just, no matter what, they're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, so there was just a long line of comedians and dancers and old world, old Europe performers, old European acts and that sort of thing. And it was just, I couldn't have been adopted into a family that was more opposite than that. I mean, really like just, salt of the earth Texans, just real dry, farming.
Well, Mel, when you go and you started piecing all this stuff together, did this become the impetus for going out there and pursuing the circus, or were you already there and you just realized, oh my gosh, this has been a part of my genetics and I didn't even know it, but it makes sense?
Well, I'll go a step further. So I was my entire life, teenage into 20s and whatever, I was around these heavy hitters that were legendary in the circus, one of which was the founder of Clown College, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Clown College. So those of you out there that are old enough to remember when in high school, when they would have the thing set up and be like, join the Marines or whatever, the Navy, and it would have all the tables set up in the cafeteria, and you could go in and it was career day. Well, there was always a booth next to wherever the military booths were. That was Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Clown College. So they were always next to the U.S. Army or one of those tables. It was always over there. And so the founder of that was my mentor long before I ever got into Ringling Brothers Circus. So, and I worked with him professionally on a lot of stuff and for years before that. And I was a stunt performer. I was into all of that. But I mean, anybody out there that knows, if you're a performer at all and you're just getting gigs and gigs and gigs and you're trying to make a living at it, you know that you've got to kind of expand your repertoire as far out as you can in order to, be useful.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, And a lot of times if I'm talking about my life, people are like, what? Like, how did you do all of that? Well, I hit the ground running and I never stopped. That's how you do all that, you know? So I did a lot of voice work for Cartoon Network, and I got into that, but I was at the same time doing shows at Six Flags over Texas. You know what I mean?
When you say stunt,
Yeah.
when you say stunt work, because you obviously when you said that you had a lot of physical ability, we're talking. I mean, I can see it between the skating and between being able to go out there and do anything that is mimicking gymnastics. Obviously, you got some physical ability there, and of course, when you say stunts, I'm thinking about you falling from high. I don't know, stories up in the air into large cushions and all that shit. Or is that what you were doing with stunts? Like, what's the craziest kind of stunts that you were doing at least consistently?
Well, in film and stuff like that, if I got called in to do stunt work, it was usually like a bar fight. Okay. Stuff like that. I knew how to take a fall. I knew, fight choreography, that sort of thing. I also would be called in to do a lot of motion caption type work. So back when that was first kind of making the scene in the post-production world, like that movie Eon Flux and that sort of stuff. So they would get, people, Doug Jones, who's on everything. He's on like the new Star Trek Discovery, and he's kind of like the creatures and all the crazy movies like Labyrinth or not Labyrinth. What's that one? Anyway, he plays the freaky looking guys and all the makeup and with the stag.
Yeah, I'm looking at him now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of my wheelhouse, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you're not jumping into pools of water.
I'm doing that too.
Okay,
I'm doing that too.
Well, let's talk about the craziest ones.
But not that kind of like jumping off a building thing. But for instance, in Circus, a ladder fall, right? So you would learn to walk a ladder, which is like, and when I say a ladder, I'm not talking about like the one that's outside, right? Like that you're going to get up on the roof with. But this thing is really tall. And so you learn how to, walk with it, like right, left, like using it as legs, essentially, as stilts, but it's a ladder. And then, trying to milk the comedy of that thing, tipping over, it does tip over, and then knowing how to roll out of that fall, stuff like that. So it's actually kind of harder than just, jumping off a building into it like a air mat, if that makes sense, because that's just, that there's like a mat down there, and I wouldn't do that anyway. That would, would I do it? Yeah, sure. But it's not, that wouldn't be what I would be hired to do, So
yeah, you're going down. You're going down right from the ladder to hard ground. You're learning how to roll out of that.
Right.
Wow,
right.
I think that's even crazier. So then let's talk about this a little bit more then too. When you're talking about stunts, and then of course you start bringing that kind of physical. When you were bringing that your show on the road, when you joined the circus, and when we talk about circus, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, that's the major league. That's the height. That's the height of it all as far as brands and everything goes there. Are you bringing that into the circus, or is this where you are just specifically a clown? Did you still need to do those stunts as a clown? Like, what were you doing when you were at the majors, up in the majors with Ringling Brothers?
Well, fortunately for me, the unit that I was on was like you said, it was the big unit. It was huge. Okay. And the particular show that, the first one that I was on, that was that tour, was very, very dance heavy, stunt heavy. It was, I'm not interested in stunts just for the sake of stunts. I think that's pretty lame and boring. Like, people who just, take a fall because whatever. I think there needs to be a preceding action that leads to that, and that's really, can you maintain the funny and the connection with the audience while you're getting your ass kicked? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Yeah, and that interests me a lot. I think, my entire career sort of revolved around this weird, fringy world, okay, of children's television, for instance, like being a puppeteer where it wasn't just the puppet. I had to also be the character, like do the voice. I had to contort my body in weird ways in order to, pull off certain characters or, create this or that or the other. Dance was a major, major thing. Musicals, acting in musical theater, and just all the way around. I loved being able. It didn't interest me to just do one thing, right? So I was, and if I could be funny on top of it all, well then, there it all is. And there was a real bias about that because let's face it, a lot of chicks are not funny at all. Okay, I know I just made probably half your audience really mad, but it's true. No, I think they all know. It's a lot of chicks try, and it falls short for some reason. It freaking fails, dude. It fails. They suck. And they're not funny. They're just not funny because they're afraid of looking ugly or disgusting. And I'm not saying I'm not talking about being like Amy Schumer and you're talking about something gross. I mean, physically being disgusting, you're not, you're contorting in a way, you're doing something that's, that is not, you're good. If somebody took a picture at that moment and it was a bad angle, you're going to look bad. You know what I mean? So, that I never had any fear about that. And in fact, that's just totally my comfort zone. And I fit the circus. Okay. Let me put a bow on this part. The Ringling Brothers and Barnum Circus, like the big show. It was one of those things that when that door opened, okay, people that I had professionally worked with that were legendary in that world and in the world of writing for late night TV shows and doing, stunt choreography for this, that, they're like, really? Wait, you want to go, you want to go to the circuit? What? Really? And I'm like, they're like, you don't get paid shit, right? And I would, yeah, I know. Well, I got that part. Let me ask you about this. As far as what's being put in and what's being taken out. How many months out of the year are you on the road with that, just that alone? Oh, it's you get a break for Christmas. So that would be what you would call winter quarters. And it's when, if it was a new show for that tour or whatever, then you would have like a couple of weeks off, and then you would go and you would learn the choreography and all the stunt choreography and everything, and write the gags and all that stuff for the new show. So you don't have really any time off. Unless there's, see, now, Frank, we're going to get into that terminology that I was telling you about, where if I just roll it out there, people are going to be scratching their heads and not have any clue what I'm talking about. But there is always a break, but it's maybe for a week or two. And sometimes that's completely random. It has to do with, the train schedule. And we had a train had to, lay off in Wichita Falls for, 2 weeks until the arena was ready. And that happened actually early on in Los Angeles because of Michael Jackson dying. So yeah, the This Is It tour was going on in the building, and we were kind of loading into the building as that show that never happened was loading out. It was really it was pretty surreal. That is crazy. Crossing of paths right there. And I have to imagine, when you're talking about a lot of time like that, where you have a Christmas break and then little sporadic weeks here and there over the course of 12 months, that must be really hard for a lot of people who do this year in, year out. This is what they do,
to build any kind of relationships or families? Are families pretty much made on the road? Are there a lot of married? Do people just marry within the circus so that they're always together? I have to imagine everybody's always hooking up.
Yeah, there's you have the old circus families that are kind of the invited acts on the show, like the Anastasinis or the Zucchinis, or you have those families, and they've always been in it. They don't know anything else, so they have like a whole entourage of and they're not gonna live on the train. They've got like a prevost, right, that they're driving, and with all the kids and the grandkids and everybody else. But yes, there are a lot of kids. That's actually one of the things I loved the most about it, were families. It's just, there's so many families, and you have, new births that happen. And one of the clowns I worked with was actually born on the circus train. Like, his family is a very famous circus family, and he's one of the most talented kids. Oh my God, well, he's not a kid now, but he was born on what we call a train run, which is where you've got the show, everything's packed up, and you're going to the next town. And so, yeah, he was born on the train. There's a lot, there's so much family, there's so much community. You would think that it would be really just like, whoa, but there's something about it, because you're working so hard that if you can't depend on the person next to you and they can't depend on you, the whole thing fails, So that's probably one of the hooks, right, that really get into you when you're doing that kind of work, is it's that camaraderie is like, I had never experienced that in my life, in my whole, and since. I haven't experienced it since. Well, it was another level.
You're describing what you're describing as that kind of a life, that kind of an environment, and that kind of a schedule is a whole. It's a world inside of a world, like a hidden world. But and I think you had discussed when we were on the phone very briefly early on today. You had said it was almost like a traveling country unto itself, where you had just so many different types of people with all their different specialties, and they come from different places all over the world. I don't know. It's like just a moving international body or something. I thought that
really was.
It's interesting.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that I'll say a couple things here, because this is really fascinating. The U.S. military actually watched Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, and how we loaded in and out, back in World War II, because they were fascinated by the logistics of it and how we were able to get, 1,800 people with, hundreds of animals and families and all this stuff packed in, out, fed, clothed, everybody's cool, and then to the next town. And so they really, like, essentially the U.S. Army went on tour with Ringling during that time to figure out how it was so organized. And it would blow your mind, Frank, how organized it is. But about the international thing, so that's probably, man, there's so much comedy gold in that too. But you've got people from quite literally all over the world, okay? Now, when these people, when they come into the circus, all right, they've been henpecked out by, the scouts of the Ringling Brothers, their main act seekers, that go out and look for these crazy things. So, there are some stories, man. Like, you'll have, and they try to put those people that are from other countries that, let's say, I don't know, Zulu warriors. There's one. They tried to put all the Zulus in their own train car, because they cook together, they have their own culture, they have their own whatever. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not going to integrate with everybody else, okay? And by the way, when I say everybody else, I mean Russians, Chinese, Brazilians, Americans, British people. I mean, everybody. And you never notice the breakdown, okay, with language, even though maybe half the show is, I mean, it is straight up Tower of Babel, right? I mean, no one speaks the same language, but you all speak the same language. And then the little things that you have to learn that nobody can tell you, you have to figure it out on your own. Like, here's a great example of that. When we're going from town to town, right? If you need to go and get something to eat, you want to sit down in the restaurant part of the train, which in circus world, we call that pie car. All right. So it's be like, hey, Mel, you going to pie car? Yeah, man. What do you want? I don't know, man. Oh, you just could sit there and watch a movie. I don't know. Whatever, coffee, eggs, whatever you want. It was always chill in there. And the cooks were always funny dudes from like, yeah, I'm from Chicago. I just want to get the hell away from my wife or whatever. And they're in there like cooking up hot dogs. And, you know, it's just a hangout, okay? But if you lived like, say, in the train car that I lived in, you knew that you were going to have to walk through the whole train in order to get to pie car. So that meant you were going to have to go through the Russians pie car or the Russians train car. And that was a whole other level because they would force you to drink if on a train. Like they would actually force you. Okay.
It was like paying the toll. It was the vodka tax.
Dude, it was a freaking vodka tax. And so you go through, they're like, oh, much. Oh, please, please, you sip, you drink, you have chocolate, you drink. And you're like, no, it's cool, I'm just going to go and get some eggs. And, no, drink, please, you try. And it was so pressure town, dude. And so you would try to wait till they were passed out drunk before you made it to the pie car. And it was straight fear, dude. It would be, there's just fear. You would haul ass. You could, you know that thing when you're a kid and you pretend like there's a monster chasing you down the hall? Like, you'd have to get that kind of mentality back.
They were a scary level of friendly. With the
they were KGB agents. I mean, there was like 3 of them that were ex-KGB.
Okay,
they were like,
they're right there. Yeah. You had told me, and I was going to wait for this moment right here to bring this up because
there's so many moments, Frank.
Well, you mentioned the army studying the circus, your circus, the big one, Ringling Brothers, to see just how well of an operation they had of packing up, getting a lot of people and animals here, there, and everywhere. Just measuring and studying the efficiency there. But you also told me that within all of the acts and the people who are actually just part of the circus, not just observing, but part of the circus, it became a magnet for a lot of special operations guys, but not only from America, you said especially ex-KGB and everything. Tell us about what is it that attracted so many special operations and foreign intelligence people that were in the circus?
I know, it's crazy. I've thought a lot about this. I really think it's very similar to the military. I really do. Because, okay, there's a chance you're going to die, fairly large. There's a pretty hefty load on your body when you're doing that work. Okay. And if you've got a low threshold for pain, just don't even bother. Just stay at home. Just don't do it. Just don't. Because like hurting, like you don't even be like, oh man, I'm sore. Like everybody knows you're sore. Okay. You just don't even talk about it anymore. You know, but everybody knows you're dog ass tired and you're sore and you're covered in bruises that are disgusting.
But that's the physical exertion thing. I can see why maybe ex-athletes or ex-military would want to be a part of that. They like that aspect of it. But when you talk about special operations and KGB, I mean that's a completely different level. We start getting into psychological stuff then.
Oh, I agree with you, and I really think that it has something to do with. So it's a lot of physical stuff, but I believe the underlying reason, the real thing, is you have that very routine, like everything is clockwork. Everything is like you're up when you're tired. You're, there's like the load in and load out, is you're a machine, and it's the camaraderie and the teamwork and the pulling your weight and, relying on your fellow person to where there's something so hypnotic about the way that you end up kind of almost telepathically communicating with each other, where it's, there's never that question. Like, I wonder if somebody forgot to lock down that set piece. It's like, no, that they did, because there's a respect that is an undercurrent that's going on. And those are the people that would kind of like jump on board the show or get the hookup or whatever that didn't have that. They were very quickly rooted out and gone. Okay. Or as we called it, railroaded. So,
I bet you any money. I bet you any money. The Army observation people were actually trying to keep tabs on the KGB. That they probably knew exactly who was on that train, and to some degree wanted to keep tabs on them. I know that's those are very well trained spies right there. So when you tell me that, my ears perk up.
Well, right there we had at least 3, and now they loved me, by the way, the KGB guys. KGB. But they really, one of them was over pyrotechnics. Can't make this up. And he had a mullet, back before they had really fully come back here. And, he had a mullet, and he was over pyrotechnics, and he got completely shit-faced every day. So there's that guy, but he never screwed up his job. Dude, the stuff the Russians did, you're like, I know they're still drunk. How the hell? But again, it was they're a different breed of people, man. I mean, talk about work ethic.
What were they doing in particular? What was their forte? You said one of them was a pyrotechnics guy, but they couldn't have been sloshed in doing acrobats, swinging with the rings.
No, they were the Russian swing act. That was like, okay, so there's this big ass swing, and then all these massive dudes, okay, swing on the swing. And they flip around and they flip to the other swing onto some other dude's shoulders. And then that one flips onto the other dude's shoulders, and they stack them up. And the swing is just a swinging. And then there's another swing that gets involved, and it's going the counter opposite way. And then there's a big dude named Volo who's in the middle. And he's like 600 pounds and like 8 feet tall, I swear. And he's in the middle, and all he does is kind of hold his arms up like, look, it's my show. Okay. And I don't know why that sells. It sells. It's fantastic. You want to see more? Give me more of that. But those guys drank every day, and they partied hard, and they never were late. They never came to the roll call late. They never missed a beat. There was never an injury. Nothing. Okay. Like nothing. Well, they were that on the money.
We have to talk about injuries. We have to talk about that in a little bit. But let me take you back. Let me take you back just a little bit now and go to clown college. Let's go to clown college. And then I want to talk about things that the greatest performative achievements and also mishaps and stuff like that. Because I'm sure you've seen it all. When clown college, you said they would be very ironically setting up right there with all the military recruiting stations and whatever at the job and the college fairs and whatever. I don't hear much about clown college anymore these days. Is that still a thing, or
No.
Okay, so it's not a thing. So tell us about what was going on there when you were in its heyday. I want to know about the curriculum. I want to know about everything.
Okay, so. I think when it finally dissolved, it would have been in like the late 90s. Fun fact, everybody. So Steve-O from Jackass, Steve-O. Yeah. So he was a Ringling clown, okay? And he went to clown college. And so a couple of the dudes that I was in the show with, and I haven't got into terminology yet, and it's hard because it's like second nature now to call it certain things, but the 13 or 14 clowns that are in Ringling Brothers You know, you got your cream of the crop people. We call that clown alley. Okay. So if you're like, oh, I'm the alley of such and such, the 139th. Okay. Then it's like, oh yeah, you were one of those 13 people, you know. So Steve-O was part of Clown College. Okay. Like all that. So I think he was in I don't know, like 4 years before it disbanded. So I think it finally they pulled the funding for it in like 97, I believe. It was a really big deal in that world because a lot of people were like, oh no, you know, because it kind of weeded out a lot of people who just had a certain idealized thing about being a clown or joining the circus and thinking of it like, I'm just going to make people laugh. Okay. And yeah, that's part of it, but it's also that it's like boot camp. Okay. It's boot camp. And so you have to learn the techniques. You have to learn how to, you know, take a hit and not really get hurt or fall or do like what's called a 108, which is literally, it looks like a somersault in the air and you land on your back. Okay. And so you go through all of that, but you have to do all of that so many times every day. So they wanted people to be trained to know how to do it without getting injured. And that was really that was one of the main purposes for Clown College was that. And then also, you know, juggling, for instance. You know, because I could teach anybody right now how to juggle in 5 minutes. 5 minutes tops. I'm just like, no, I really can't. I've tried. No, trust me. 5 minutes. Okay, I promise.
I'd love to know how to juggle. I would love to. I would love to know how to juggle just 3 nectarines. You know,
that's all it takes. Though, I don't consider myself a juggler. Like, you know, would I put I'm a juggler on my resume? No. I can juggle. Because when you see like a juggler, like somebody who's like, this is what I do, that's a whole other ball of wax, you know? So, but juggling 3 balls, 5 minutes, I could teach anybody. Okay. For real. Anybody. I taught a kid with that had 1 arm. All right. To juggle 3 balls. Trust me. And that was one of the things with Clown College is it was being able to break down something that people think is like, oh man, that's so cool, right? But there's a physics to it, and there's like a trick, and that's that kind of cool Americana vaudeville brain, you know, that was involved in a lot of that. And those were the people that I worked with for years. I mean, there's some genius comedians, physical comedians that I mean, it's like it was all fate, you know. And I was doing professional shows with them long before I was on Ringling.
Well, when you say, so would you say that the curriculum and this training is universal, or would you say that or is it one of those things where you go in knowing what kind of a concentration you'd like to zero in? You want to do juggling, or you want to be, you want to focus more on magic?
It was to crank out like the best possible. Like Ringling it's kind of that old American way of thinking of like American circus is this, okay? This is what we want our American circus clowns to be. We want them to be able to not only be physically funny, but we want them to be able to they don't have to be the best at juggling, but they have to know how to juggle, okay? They have to know how to fall repeatedly without being hurt. They have to know how to not have a giant ego if they're doing a bit, you know, and not. I mean, one of the greatest like things I learned from again like a total legendary person, and it was like he said, and he's from Brooklyn, but he said this is a perfect example, Frank, of what I'm talking about. Of like stuff that you learned there that you couldn't have got from any acting school, nothing. Okay. First of all, it was discipline was a lot of it too, but he said, you're going to have a lot of new people. They're going to be buzzing around and like running around and trying to be over the top, you know, like really like jumping around, using too many hand movements, whatever. And he says, if you start feeling like there's bees around you when you're out there and you're doing a bit, he goes, the way you can hone it all back in and really just get the crowd by the balls is be the one person who's standing still, okay, and just looking dead at the audience. Like,
that's a great right there is a huge that's a piece of advice that anybody, even in media, can take. That's a really great advice that I'm taking right now and digesting, and because there's a lot of people right now in new media that are just jumping up and down, just waving their hands, trying to hey, look at my act, and it really is a I don't know, it creates a unnecessary sense of competition that actually does undercut a lot of really good, valuable productions out there. And that whole idea of just being the calm in the storm, or just trying to be the counterbalance to what everybody's inclinations are in that respect is actually a really great a piece of life advice.
This guy is that, everybody wants to have a mentor like that, and I've been so blessed. Oh my God, I've been so blessed. I have had mentors that people go, you knew them? And it's like, I know. And who the hell am I? Right. And I just felt, there was so much of that kind of key thing. And man, I'll never forget that piece of advice I just shared with you, Frank, is I felt that in the Chicago Bulls arena, because it was like packed. It was 50,000 people. Right. And all of the new, they call them, for folks out there, a new season of clowns that had just got in. Now, I'm not taking anything away from them. They're brilliant. There's a reason that they got picked, okay? I'm not saying anything like, we were all picked out of thousands and thousands and thousands of people, but they're so super stoked about it. And so I felt that feeling of the bees, right, around, and it just chaos. And I was like, I'm going to take that advice right now. And it got the biggest laugh. Like uproarious laugh, because the audience is going, I don't even know what to look at. Like, where's the gag? What's happening now? Because it just was chaos, and I just got right up to that point where I almost broke the third wall, there, and jumped, and, put my foot over the track where the light wouldn't have totally been hitting my face, but I got right up to that. And then I just deadpanned out. Like, I know, guys, I have no clue what's effing going on either. And it was like a deal. And then they're like, hey, can you do that every show?
You were the
what's
call it? You were the straight man. You were the Dean Martin to everybody else's Jerry Lewis. And that's why comedy duos, some of the most legendary ones, usually had that straight guy that counterbalanced the clown. Mm-hmm. And
the guy that taught me that is your quintessential straight man, because he did a lot of the stuff back in the day on the Johnny Carson show, did a lot of skits on all sorts of stuff, wrote the funniest stuff in the 80s for late night television and that sort of thing. And you look at him and you freaking die laughing. Like, he's just got just the most funny, like that. It's that, Abbott face. It's just the long, like, kind of, and he can just stare at you and you're dead. You're dead. Like, he's just built like that. But then he's also extremely talented in physically as well. And he's tall. I'm very tall. So when you see a tall person also be physically funny, that's different, because a lot of, physical comedians and stuff are short. Okay. And a lot of acrobats and stuff like that are short,
Yeah.
And tall and lanky really can sell if you're physically gifted in that way, because there's a lot coming at you.
There it is.
You know what I mean?
It gets very, very lanky, very goofy, very fast, like a rubber band man. But let me ask you this now: when we get into now, we talked about clown college and life on the road and all that. You brought up just good old fashioned America. I want to talk about how things have changed over the years, especially how you've watched the landscape of American culture just change over the years, especially legally. Because I still to this day I've never been to a circus. I've never been to a circus, but the one thing I know, the one thing I do get is exposed to all of the news about, we hear a lot about the circus going away because of the living conditions of the animals were so horrific, and there's all this abuse and stuff like that. Talk about the legal aspects, both domestic with like PETA or, what you're dealing with internationally. Talk about that.
Okay. Well, this is probably the most important thing as far as like, if I had one thing I hope everybody listening remembers, it's this, and I tell people this in person too. Okay. If Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus had been mistreating their animals, I don't care how much I wanted that gig, I would have quit day one. Okay. So I'm a huge animal person. They're kind of my world. All right. So, just some like a lot of people don't realize this, but Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus won, okay, the largest lawsuit in American history against PETA, okay? It's the largest one, okay? They were Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, not all that long ago, was actually awarded $9.3 million, and that's just one of many, like there was more. That was the first big one. And PETA had to pay them that. Okay?
For what?
They had to actually pay them that.
Why?
Because, okay, so for those of you out there that still are not fully on board with what PETA really is, because it's kind of like, if you say BLM or whatever, like if you know what the name, if you say the name People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, well, hey, yeah, of course I'm for that, right? Of course. Well, who wouldn't be? You psycho, right? So that's what people, they see it spelled out, and that's what they think it is. But it's actually, let me tell y'all something. They're complete and total terrorists. They're psychopaths, all right? And I saw it up close and personal, and it opened my eyes to it. And I heard circus families talking about what they had done. Okay. And I was a witness to it. I know. So PETA is, when you see that horrible footage that they show of I can't even talk about it without like vomit crying, but of elephants in the circus and all this kind of stuff. None, and I repeat, none of that footage, that really horrible stuff you've seen, came from Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus.
Were they but okay? Well, then, to be fair, you have again, like I said, the major leagues of the circus, of the circus business out there, Ringling Brothers, and then you have there has to be plenty of smaller acts and traveling acts out there. Which is
who did it? Yes.
Okay.
And so there was those mud shows that we call them mud shows. Okay. Now, not all mud shows. There's some mud shows that are so Americana, they've been here longer, okay? But I'm talking about, so here's how, okay, roll with me, guys, roll with me. So let's say that you saw, an elephant, and it's, the famous one that PETA would show everywhere, okay? All right, well, PETA's not going to get a damn dime from, Joe Schmo's Circus in freaking Louisville, Kentucky, all right? They don't have anything. There's some hill jack that got a hold of an elephant. And hey, look at our tent. Okay. And they don't know anything. So Ringling Brothers, though, and Feld Entertainment, they have an animal conservatory, like an actual elephant conservatory. So a lot of those elephants that were really, really horribly mistreated ended up getting purchased by Ringling, not to perform, but to go to the conservatory. Okay. To go and live in the most beautiful, lush place you've ever seen in your life, okay? And they have round-the-clock vets, the best in the world, all that stuff, all right? So they'd be like, well, does Ringling own this elephant? And you'd look it up and be like, yeah, they do, but they're not telling you the full story. That elephant actually was rescued and put in a conservatory, okay? So there's that part of it. But I'll give y'all an example of how they work. And you guys may remember this. It was all over the news back when I was on the show. So it would have been 2010, I think, or something. But it was in Atlanta, Georgia, and all the zebras got loose, and they were on the highway. Mm-hmm. And it showed a lot of us running after them and trying to get them. Okay. So a lot of these huge arenas that are all over, the country, when a huge show like Ringling gets there, you know, they don't have the staff really to like facilitate, you know, cleaning the bathrooms or, you know, all that kind of stuff. Now, Ringling, we don't need our own staff. We don't need any of that. We've got everything from wardrobers to people that wash our clothes, all that stuff. They all travel with the show. They're all family. But in those big arenas like that, you know, keeping the vending machines working or sweeping, whatever. So they would put out like an ad, and it would be like, you know, cash money or whatever. It's a temp gig. It's going to run for 3 weeks. These are the time if you want to show it. So they would hire, it's like a temp agency, right? So they would hire in these people. Well, PETA would put their people, say, hey, go and get jobs at American Airlines Center, right? Arena. And go and get a job there for this run here. As Ringling says, we're going to do such and such. So you had a lot of those people there. And Ringling and some of these, we're talking about military kind of intelligence people, they're not stupid, and they had ways of figuring out who was a plant and who wasn't. But in this one particular case, that I was present for, there was, I think, 2 had slipped through the cracks, okay, and they were PETA people. And if you know anything about African zebras, they are very skittish, and they are very herd mentality. So if they get scared, their natural instinct is they're going to bolt, and they're all going to bolt together, okay? So, and these zebras were very desensitized to loud noises or whatever, but they had their one guy that loved them, that, I mean, literally like sang to them and petted them and like loved them. And really nobody else was allowed back there. So you had a PETA person who was posed as a backstage person. They go in, they've got a couple of air horns and a couple of, you know, blackjack firecrackers. They undid their corral panel gate, set those off in there, went bwomp with the air horns. What did they do? They took off.
You're telling me that you're telling me that the incident in Georgia in 2010 was actually sabotage?
Yeah.
I
was there. I was there.
That's crazy, because I'm reading right now from the LA Times. I'm going back to 2010 with this Georgia thing, and they're talking about the PETA blogger Logan Schreier wrote that the group is hoping that the tragedy of Lima's death, that's one of the zebras whose hooves was damaged, so they had to euthanize him. They hope that
they did that. PETA did that. They did that.
Officials, they hope that this will end the exploitation of all zebras in the circus. Then they go on to talk about an elephant that contracted a disease called elephant endotheliotropic herpes virus. The elephant's name was Barack, for Barack Obama. And PETA... Oh, man.
I was there when Barack was born. Yeah, Barack the elephant was born. And, everything that you're talking about, some of the elephants carry a dormant form. I mean, we had to get TB tested every year and stuff like that. I mean, it's just like kind of a thing when you work with around them. But, Ringling has the best veterinary care in the world.
Yeah, well, they're saying
world.
They're saying Pete. Here's another quote for you. PETA's complaint suggests that Barack's immune system was compromised due to stress brought out by his treatment at the circus, making him vulnerable to disease. I can't believe
he was never in the circus, Frank. Barack was born, and then literally he didn't perform in the circus because, for one, you wouldn't make a male elephant be around female elephants, or everybody's dead, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's dead. But Barack immediately went to the conservatory, immediately. Like, he was born not on a circus train. He was born at actually at a facility, like our winter quarters facility. He was born there with 24-hour, like the best in the world veterinary specialists, like best in the world. They're flown from all over the world. And and that's where he lived. He was never in the show. Wow. Never ever promised Girl Scouts honor did. He was never in the show, ever. And so it's just lies. It's all lies. And by the way, people, I got nothing to lose, okay? I'd tell you the truth. I would tell you the truth, okay? Like, for real. I'm a person of integrity. I would tell you the truth. Ringling does not give me a damn dime to be over here talking, like tooting their horn about anything.
But you're saying,
okay,
you were there to witness. This was sabotage. That wasn't a
100%, 100%. And I not only saw it there, but I saw it with them. Like they, well, I mean, see, it was a year after. Well, it doesn't matter where it was, but one of the elephants was shot in a drive-by shooting. Okay, it was a drive-by shooting, and that was a PETA person. And then the whole thing was like, well, you know, it was a bad neighborhood, and you can't have these lovely creatures out in a bad neighborhood, and they're just out. And blah. It's like, no, they came into the facility, inside of the arena, talked to like a guard into it. Somebody drove by, and they shot a few times. And by the way, these elephants, it's not like elephants. Like I know the ladies. We called them the ladies. I know their names. One of them saved my life my very first day on the road. The very first day she saved my actual life. So they're people. We view them as like, I mean, they're smarter than us. They're like freaking dinosaurs that are like brilliant. We know them. We know the families. We know how much they're loved. They got donuts on Saturday morning, for crying out loud. I mean, we didn't get that, you know? Like they had round the clock, top of the food chain, veterinary care that traveled, literally lived on the show specifically every day to go and check on them. And they had everything that they ever needed. They were given baths every day. They had, I mean, they were, yeah. So
well, it's become one of those. Yeah. It's become one of those things where, you know what? I mean, I hate the idea of animals at the zoo. Even at this point, I think more and more people just think about being, you know, even if they're being treated well, I think it's more so. Some people just take the stance that, well, these are animals that deserve to be, you know, deserve to be free and not part of a troop or something like that. But of course, it's about, I think for people like PETA, I don't know. We see this kind of thing done in so many different ways across so many other industries too, just trying to destroy things and leave nothing behind. But let me ask you, outside of the just getting away from the animals being treated one way or another, what about animals mistreating people? Have you ever seen, or maybe, okay, have you ever seen anybody attacked by animal, or have you seen, you know, any other mishaps that stand out from over the years of doing all this dangerous stuff, performing across the country and even the world?
Yeah. Well, the only thing that I would say, none of the animals ever misbehaved on, as far as that goes. Now, I will tell you this. The horses, okay. There was one Arabian horse that was, straight up, like, out of Lord of the Rings, okay? Like, one of those that you're like, God bless America, that's the most gorgeous animal I've ever seen. Okay. And, I mean, just unreal looking. And that horse had the hots for me. So I was scared of that horse, and if I walked past that horse, he would like buck and try to like knock down. He would literally knock down a wall to try to get.
Well,
yes, and I was like, oh my God! And then a lot of people were bit on the ass by the little mini horse named Romeo. Romeo had a penchant for biting asses. And so if you walked past him and he just was in one of his moods, your ass is going to get bit. Yeah. So, he was like like a tiny horse too. And all the big horses were terrified of him. But, we had I'm sure some of you guys may remember on America's Got Talent, there's got the dog act, that one. It was called the Olate Dogs. So they were on the show with me. They were kind of best freaking dogs, man. They're so great. But, all of the animals were they're like seasoned professionals. You know what I mean? Like, they're so good. They're just like, they have the same mentality as all of the people. They know their cues. They know You know, I mean, the elephants are like old showgirls, you know? They're like, I remember when I used to be, I mean, they're just like, you've got like the one in the front that's like 80, you know? And then you got the young, like kind of like prissy pants in the back, you know, there's like 14 of them, right? And they're all female and they're the whole thing. But I've witnessed stuff that nobody can even explain unless you're around them. You know, I mean, that they're not trained to do, that no one, I mean, maybe somebody a million years ago told them about something, or they remember something. But, you know, there was a big, actually up near you, there was a big train disaster. It's upstate New York. Were we in Albany, I think, maybe? Something like that. Anyway, but there was a very famous train derailment that happened there. It was really horrible. And like most of the circus performers died, and it was just, you know, and like the back half of the train was cool. But anyway, we didn't play Albany for years. Like, I mean, it was like, you know, 75 something years. It was out of respect. Like, we're not playing Albany, right? Like, because of this horrible disaster that had happened. Well, the year that, my first year, we played Albany, it was like a big deal, right? That we were going to play Albany. So when the circus gets into town, we do what's called animal walk. And that's when the train will stop. Now we're kind of getting into the Americana thing, which is really cool, and how tradition has changed so much. I mean, things you got away with then that there's no way you could do it now. When I say then, y'all, I'm not talking about that long ago. We're talking maybe 12 to 14 years ago, you know, not long ago. That's how much like culture and everything has just shifted. You know.
Well, let me help preface this too just a little bit more, because this is the last thing I really want you to talk about before we wrap up tonight. Oh
man, I'm sorry, I've been talking too much.
No, this is what you're here for. But I want to make sure that I get this, because you said something very interesting on the phone. No, actually, this was an email that we went back and forth when we were starting to set all this up. And you said that you thought that the biggest thing was that the tradition of it all was really starting to end, like that Americana slice of pie that the circus was, that this was all starting to end right around or right before the inauguration of Donald Trump. So can you just, so like you were saying, being there long enough to see the height of it all, and then where you were actually able to, from that vantage point, see this big cultural shift in America, the circus being a big part of that. Expand on that, the timing and what you were seeing change so quickly.
You know, I think it's a 3-part thing. I think, you know, my first year was the first iPhone came out that year. Okay. Now I know it's like, what's that have to do with anything? Everything. It has everything to do with it. And I mean, life before smartphones, right? So, that was the first year of that. My first tour was like about halfway through that was when the iPhone came out. And, it was a slow trickle, right? But like, there was still, life was still kind of, even with computers and everything, it was still kind of analog in a social way. All right. So, you know, the complete dependency on social media to see what somebody's doing, what they're, you know, what do they like or dislike, or, you know, that whole thing, that hadn't really like grabbed up anybody like fully yet. I mean, you had MySpace, you had Facebook, but it wasn't, you know, it's not like it is now by any stretch.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it was right before Trump got in, and we had all, you know, everybody had heard about just kind of that swath of states, you know, where the coal miners were in these very blue collar towns, and how broken these people were. But you don't really know until, well, now you would, because again, we're all so connected, right? But I really, really realized it when we would play like Toledo, or, you know, these towns in West Virginia or Pennsylvania or whatever, and you would see these people who, like, I mean, they were living, and I mean that, like living and waiting, like, to take their family to go and meet the train when it stopped, okay, and wave at all the performers. And that was probably one of the greatest joys of my life was, you know, I mean, here's all this hilarity going on behind closed doors in the trains, right? And all of us, you know, we're all smoking cigarettes on the vestibule, like whatever. But then, you know, you'd pull into these, like, maybe the train would do a water stop or something, and you'd be like on a train track in some rural part of Pennsylvania or Kentucky or something, and you'd have people just like, they would know that the Ringling train, the circus train is gonna, they would follow it. They would know the route, and it was like clockwork every year. And they would be at the you know, where the train was going to take a water break, and you'd have people coming up and giving you teddy bears and the kids, and like, this is my grandson or my great grandson. We saw the Clown Alley back in 32, you know, and now my great granddaughter is going to get to see it. And just seeing like this tradition of like, we always bring the clowns cookies. Like we've done that for 100 years in my family. Like I would get so freaking choked up, dude, over that. I would just get like where I'd get just such a lump because it was so important to these people. And it was America. And you're like, well, hell yeah, dude. Like I have never seen this. And they didn't have money. They didn't have any, I mean, you could tell that they like had lost their, you know, coal mining job, or their, you know, the gas line had shut down or whatever. But my God, they were going to go and see the damn circus, you know, and they were going to meet the clowns, and they were going to, you know, do that. And you were going to know them. You were going to know. And then I would get calls from people who were on the show 50 years ago and be like, did you meet so-and-so? Oh yeah. Well, I knew his great so-and-so, you know. And about towards the end of it, when there was kind of this rumor that they were going to pull the plug, and I was like, how could they, man? This is a slice of American. Like, I mean, you can't pull the plug on this the American circus. You can't do that. What are you talking about? It's crazy. You know, some tradition like this, that's like sacrilege. And it was right before Trump was actually officially inaugurated. And my brother actually was the train master. He was like the guy in charge of the route, the train, everything. And I wasn't on the road at that time. I had got off the road and was working. I was still doing the work and stuff. But I was, anyway, y'all shelved that. But I was working at children's hospitals as literally, I'm not even joking, a laughter specialist, okay, for terminally ill kids. So still very rewarding. And I was still working with my crew that I was working with on Ringling, which was really great. But my brother called me and he said, the circus is closing. And I said, what are you talking about, you know? And I happened to be at a housewarming party with nothing but ex-Ringling alumni. And then the next thing you know, it's like on the news. And we knew it was coming because all of a sudden everything started to get about jumbotrons and, you know, hashtags. And if you could win this thing, like the halftime show was no longer the halftime show, like, or intermission, I should say, you know, where it was all about merch and not the little glow things you buy for your kid either. It was all about social media stuff. Then they fired all the clowns. So there were no more Ringling clowns that were like stunt performers, dancers, funny people, all that gone. And everyone was replaced with Chinese acrobats. And I know that how that sounds, and you're like, you're full of shit. No, they were Chinese acrobats, and most of the cast were Chinese. And the clowns were they were wearing all of our costumes and had our look, but they were some of the Chinese that were just kind of miming it and doing it along with the social media jumbotron.
I'm looking at a Guardian post, and I remember this from 2016. We it might have been like a grab bag article or something like that where we just talked about it and reflected for a moment. It wasn't a big point of conversation, but we knew it here. 145 years of elephant shows and decades of pressure from animal activists, and the final show was that year. This is May 2016. Now, is it? I haven't caught up with any of it. Is it really still done? Is there's no more elephants and it's still mostly foreign workers, or did it come back? What happened?
Well, so as of very, very, very recently, there's the whispers of the show coming back, but not it would be more of like a stationary thing, kind of like Cirque du Soleil is or something. Now, the whole thing about them closing and blaming it on the animal activists and all that, absolute horseshit. That's not why it went down at all. Like, that is absolutely not the reason. I know firsthand that is not the reason why. But it was one of the sound bites, right, that kind of got passed around, and so it just spread. You know, it was the easiest thing for people to grab up, so they did that. But there was way more of a financial thing happening because Feld still owns Monster Jam. Okay, like all those, like when Monster Jam goes around everywhere, Marvel, like the Marvel Live, all that stuff. So a lot of the acrobats and performers that were on the road with me went and started, doing the Marvel Live shows or did, whatever. It's not the same at all, right? That's what we call a bus and truck show. So you're staying at a hotel, you're going to the arena, you're doing the thing, and it's just not the same at all. There was so much tragedy the last year that I was in it, which was very close to the last year. It started to become more, I don't know how much I can say, but the old school guy that was like over it forever and ever and ever, amen, it was willed over to his very, very young granddaughter.
Progressive,
okay?
Progressive granddaughter?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah.
And when she took it over, then that's when it's like, I never liked clowns. Okay. It was that. And then like everybody's fired. And then, and then the last thing I did with them, which I think I sent you a picture of, but at least I went out with the bang, was the Guinness. I got in the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest pie fight. And it was my group that,
for the largest what?
That was in that.
The largest what?
The largest pie fight.
Oh, the largest pie fight.
Yep.
So what does that mean? The most amount of pies thrown, the biggest pies thrown, what?
The most amount of pies slammed in somebody's face, like in a crowd's face. So like thousands of people show up. My dumbass is on the Jumbotron going like, okay, everybody, and then you get your pie, man. You come with pie. And, and you wear a poncho or you don't, but, you're going to get a pie in the face. So like 3 stages level pie in the face, man. And there's nothing quite like getting pies in your face. Trust me. And that's some of those traditions. For those of you out there, I dread a pie in the face more than you possibly can know. Oh,
I can imagine. Melodee, let me ask you, what's your favorite pie to get? What's your favorite pie to get slammed with?
Oh God. Okay. So if you are unfortunate enough to actually have to spend your birthday on the train, the Ringling Brothers train, it's a tradition and you just kind of got to go with it. But the entire 1,800 people on the show they plot together like assholes. They plot to nail you literally from the top in the very early morning until it's the stroke of midnight with pies in the face. Yeah, but what's your favorite? What's your favorite pie to get hit with? Definitely lemon meringue.
I was gonna say it would have to, for me, it would have to be something like lemon meringue or like a banana cream pie. It have to be
banana cream for sure.
It sounds like that sounds like it would be the most comfortable pie to get hit with.
It is definitely the most comfortable pie. Occasionally, there's a really nice person that will just use like Barbasol, like shaving cream, and you're like, well, thank you. At least that cleaned off the layer of sticky that I had on me. Not if it's menthol. The 47 pies before,
Yeah, but not if it's like a menthol Barbasol or so. I'd rather have something edible and organic than shaving cream.
I had an entire 8-layer wedding cake pretty much slammed in my face, and that actually pissed me off because it was delicious, but there was just so much. There was so much in so many places, and I was so sticky, and it was hot outside too, so it was worst.
Terrible! That's terrible. Yeah. Well, you went out. You went out with a bang, and I can see how that is a major thing to be around for. You want to talk about the changing landscape of Americana, and to see that it can go out so unceremoniously, especially with most people being conditioned into saying, "Oh, good news for a change, finally." Everybody, those are all, it was probably a traveling band of abusers and all that other stuff. We see it. People are just kind of, they're kind of groomed into saying goodbye to things that really were a magical part of our tradition sometimes. Not to say that there aren't a bunch of skeevy people and smaller acts that are abusing all types of animals. They don't care anything about being humane or anything like that, and but this is I think what the story you tell here is a much bigger one, especially since you were at the top of the world when it comes to the circus. And
I'll tell you this, and then this is something that just was like one of those mental images. I know you're kind of like me in that way, where something that will represent something, in an abstract way, but. I saw one of the train cars, right? So, they wouldn't get so far as to piece out the train and just sell it, right? And the beautiful, 150-year-old hand-stitched, costumes and the elephant blankets and all of that stuff. Everyone was instructed, the last man standing was my brother, but it was everyone was instructed to put all that stuff in a dumpster. It was like, no, just throw it out. We're talking 150 years of American history of, posters and set pieces and, stuff that a real craftsman made, that was all there. It was all in the storage and everything. And they weren't told to put it, even in the Ringling, the museum, they're just told to destroy it. And of course, may or may not have had some people that were like, that ain't going to happen on my watch. Okay. So there was some of that. A lot of it survived.
What is one thing that you kept from your time with the circus that's for you, that you'll, a relic, anything like that, did you keep for yourself just as a memento?
I have a few things that are really special. But I'll tell you this, I have my costume, which nobody else does. So, yeah, and it's hand-stitched Swarovski crystals. It's the real deal.
That's awesome.
And, I have that. And the shoes. I will never, ever get rid of those shoes. I didn't wear clown shoes either. I refused. But just because they were dangerous to me, I thought I'm going to end up killing myself trying to get around with some big bulbous thing on the front of my foot, and I didn't think they were funny. But yeah, I have a lot of stuff like that. I have posters. I have some really neat stuff. I have a ton of stuff like that.
Wow.
But yeah, it's very cool. And I saw, though, out in the field, it was one of the train cars, and it was just kind of out in this field, and it was in the middle of Nebraska or something. And this was like last year or the year before, and I was traveling, and I was like, that's one of the Ringling trains, and it was just like sitting out there in a field, right? Somebody had just bought it, and it was just, there was just nothing except for like corn, right? It was in a cornfield, and it just made me just the whole scene of that was like, yep, like nobody has any clue the generations of people and memories and everything that happened just inside of that little train car that's right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know. It reminds me of those images of fields and fields and fields of decommissioned all types of vehicles or planes or even theme parks that have been shut down. Those that were, you just think about them. I think they become in many ways liminal spaces because there's so much nostalgia and there's so much human residue that's just all over them. And and now here they are, just alone, abandoned, and it's a very ghostly thing to see. And Melodee, I gotta thank you so much for being on with us tonight. I know there's so many more things that you can contribute, and I just hope that you call in over time just to comment on one thing or another. I haven't talked to you about your voice acting or anything like that, but you've given us such a breath of fresh air tonight to talk about something that is still very relevant to our culture and the way things change in maybe unseen ways, because not everybody's in tune with what's going on with the circus. As I told you myself, I've never been to one, but
it's so crazy, Frank.
I know.
It's so crazy.
I know.
Oh my God. Well, there's still some good ones that are out there that are great, but can I say one more thing before we go?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say,
sugar on top.
I was going to say, please leave everybody with some parting shots, and maybe, at least for me personally.
This is one. Yes.
No,
okay,
go ahead.
Cool. Sorry, I got so excited because, well, first of all, I can't wait to like somehow hook that up for you to take Aurora to the circus. Oh my God, I can't wait. Okay. But second thing I want to say, because she's going to freak out. She's going to love it. Okay. Is a lot of the old circus families said when all that happened, they were like, well, it has to die. And I was like, no, whatever. And I really believe, on a positive note though, and this is not just about the circus, it's about a lot of stuff, right? I think that not having that slice of American pie, which we have all experienced quite heavily in the last like 4 or 5 years, okay? We've all like felt that really strongly. It's going to make a resurgence, okay? And that kind of thing is going to be, it's going to be huge. By the way, Donald Trump used to come to Clown Alley every time we played Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, like every single time. But anyway, he loved it. So I like it. But a lot of people would come back there, and it was kind of a tradition thing. But yeah, I think all of that, it was kind of taken for granted in a way. It's like, oh, well, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. That's going to be there. Or like my favorite city park it's going to be there, and then it's not there. And, it's like a death, right? But I think I really believe that it's coming back, not just that, but like an appreciation for artists, like a true artist, a true artisan, someone that's doing something really authentic, real skill is, I think, coming back. I really believe that. And it's been, a painful, quote, death, but I feel that it is coming back because people love to hear about this stuff. And I mean, I could literally talk for 9 hours on the stories I have, but, that would take 9 hours. But yeah, I've got a lot of hope for like kids, like your child's age. Like they're legitimately interested in kind of some old stuff. They're like, oh man, what's this?
Yeah.
Like, what's this over here? And I mean, I'm a puppeteer too. And I trained with like the Henson Studios and the guy that created a lot of that stuff. And kids are really into that. They think like, oh man, that's freaking awesome. How do you do that? And I'm like, this is great. This is great.
We're performers.
They put the iPad down for a minute.
Yeah.
They put the freaking iPad down. So I think it's a good deal. And yeah, again, I've got I've got so many funny things I could say, but I'll leave you guys with one hilarious circus term that you can throw out if you ever meet a circus person.
Okay.
Okay. I think I told you. Well, this one's pretty funny, but people who want to be clowns but are terrible, we call yamas because they go, "Yeah, I'm a clown." Okay.
Yeah, I'm a clown.
So those are yamas. Yamas. Yeah.
There's a lot of yamas. A lot of yamas in media.
Yama wall of shame. What'd you say?
I said there's a lot of yamas in media today. Just whatever.
Yeah, I forget who it was. Somebody might have been on the Alex Jones show. Threw out the word yama, and I was like, "Bleh," and I like perked up. I was like, "Wait, who knows?"
He did it authentically though. Like he was actually using the circus term, or it was just by happenstance he said it.
No, because he was talking about like, oh, these clowns in media, and I think he said they're yamas like that. And
well,
like, dude, wait, stop.
That's authentic. He knows.
Of course, he freaking knows. Of course, but
well, so then you gave us a little something to go on. Yamas, we'll put that in the Urban Dictionary for tonight. And Melodee Lenz, thank you for the spending almost the entire show with me. This was much needed. And please keep in touch. I know that you're out there watching, however you can, but keep in touch, keep writing in, keep calling in. I loved this, and it all because you called in one night because I wanted to report on a little did you know weird factoid about retired carnies and circus people that were hanging out in a very, very remote part of Florida, and there you were, and now here it is tonight. So just thank you just for putting yourself out there. I had a wonderful time with you tonight.
Oh, I had a great time, and anytime, and next time we could do just funny stories, that would be great.
You got it.
But anyway, yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody, and keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thank you. And send us more pictures. I only had, out of all the pictures you sent me, the three I put up tonight were the only ones that weren't pixelated. I want to see more visual evidence of your work. I want to see it all. So send me whatever you got.
Oh, yeah. I'll get the good ones off the hard drive. So
okay.
No
great.
problem.
All right. Take care then. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.
There is Melodee Lenz. Wow, guys. Hey, thank you. Thank you for indulging me on Wednesday in June. All right, last Wednesday in June. I'm going to take a really quick break. When we come back, I'm going to go through your super chats, take a couple of calls. It's just going to be open lines for whatever time I have left. And tomorrow we'll get back down to all types of things. News. We'll talk a little bit health, a little bit nutrition. We'll just hit a lot of different subjects. And then, of course, we have the debate tomorrow night after the show that we'll be watching, doing a little overtime together. So that'll be nice. At least you know what you're doing on a Thursday as well. I've got it all penciled off. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button. Thank you.
Let's watch something else, butthead. No way. Those chicks at school said they love this show. And now we must figure out why, so that we can score with them.
Welcome to intermission. Yeah, intermission.
You are now entering, quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Watch Quite Frankly and stuff.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
All my fellow Franciscans.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly. Quite frankly. We'll be in the gulag with you, Frank.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Yo, what's good, Frank?
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly podcast.
I want to get a Coke. Can I get a Coke?
So everybody watch, Quite Frankly, with Frank.
Quite frankly.
dare you?
It doesn't surprise me that anybody that was very athletic, or especially military, would want to do something that is physically challenging, grueling, repetitive, whatever it is. Just focusing all that energy into something like being part of a traveling circus act, especially that big. Dark Horses says it's probably a good thing. Why raise children with the idea animals exist to entertain humans? Humans barely entertain humans anymore. (914-200-0269). Call in. Let me know what you think about this. I'd love to hear from you. 914-200-0269. Give me a buzz. Here's another one for you. The days of elephants in circuses were numbered because they are not meant to be enclosed areas. Out in the wild, they are constantly in motion. They can walk several miles. What do you think about that? So, here's something else. I thought this little exchange is something. I'm waiting and longing. Dallas Williams says, I'm waiting and longing for the day when pet dogs are banned as well. What a relief for the animals and for the hundreds of thousands of individuals who appear in the emergency rooms every year with bite wounds. All the people driving to distraction by barking dogs. Let this elephant circus act be the beginning. P.S. I suspect that the next target, though, won't be Woofy, but farm animals instead. Somebody says, WTF, I would rather ban you. And, of course, someone else is realizing that the pet world is full of these calculatingly bred aberrations that exist as nothing else as living toy slaves. Talking about just the average dog. I mean, how far do you want to take it? How far do you want to take it? I think that's a valid point. How far do you take that one? 928, you're on the air. What do you think about this?
Hi, Frank. My name is Vanessa. I'm in Arizona.
Hello,
you brought
Vanessa.
back a lot of memories for me today.
Okay.
I used to go to my grandfather's house in the wintertime when the circus was there. And I got to go several times as a small child. And I remember saying that I really wanted to ride an elephant. And I finally got the chance when I was 22. There was a small circus that visited Southern California, and I got to ride one of the elephants.
And now, do you have? And of course, those are still fond memories for you. Do you now, with a little bit of? There's always a feeling like I remember going to Playland over here in my neck of the woods, and for a little time there was a pony ride section where you can get on. That was the first and only saddle I've ever felt under my ass. And but it was
a Shetland.
Well, still, it's just one of those things where I remember being on this and just feeling that, and that's a sensation I'll always remember in my life, only because it's an animal. I mean, still a pony can be pretty powerful, a lot more. You get kicked with one, and go tell me how you feel in the morning. But that's something I remember, and something I never really thinking about the life of the pony, who was just walking back and forth for the price of a couple of ticket stubs for the entirety of an afternoon or an evening, with a couple of water breaks and some hay to munch on, whatever the hell it is. So as a kid, it creates lasting core memories. But as an adult now, what do you feel about the animal at the circuit? Do you feel remorse for it? I don't know, because a lot of people over here in these comment sections, they're happy that the circus is gone and the animals have been liberated somehow. What do you feel now as an adult?
As an adult, I feel the way I feel about it is it depends on the human that's handling the animal.
Mm-hmm.
If they have a good home, I know they have a soul. Animals connect with us. And they're happy. If it's a bad person, it's shameful. And so maybe we should be vetting the humans, not the animals.
I think that's a great way of putting it. Especially when it comes to race horses, I have seen so many instances, both with my own eyes and also just covered, these really incredible stories where there are these incredible bonds between animals, their owners, animals, their riders, whatever it is, where there almost becomes a joint purpose in life. Like you know, some animals that especially a horse or something, they almost seem to be appreciative.
Their family.
Yeah, and they seem to be appreciative for the purpose you've given them, and they perform within that.
And they love. They love good humans. It comes back to the human aspect of it.
You see, that's something totally different than a zoo. You know,
yeah.
That
it is.
when I think about a girl and her horse, a man and his horse, whether it be a equestrian or a race or whatever the hell it is, when I think about that bond between man and beast, and then I think about tigers wasting away on an artificial rock facing in the Bronx, that's totally different stuff. And
I agree.
Oh, well, thank you for the call. This is a wonderful call.
Thank you, Frank. Bye.
Okay. Have a good one. Yeah, here's another comment from somebody from 2016. Says, these animal activists should ban horse racing too, but they won't because all rich assholes are involved in that. They'll do this with a circus because as long as poor middle class can't do anything about it, they're happy. Now, that's certainly who seems to have been affected by it, who are, those stories that Melodee was talking about with, traveling through the poorer parts of, rural America, that Rust Belt over there, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, things like that, places like that. And to have people greeting the trains and there being just long family lineages of not even being involved with the circus, but just being among the circus. Having a tradition of bringing and offering gifts of welcome and all that stuff to the clowns and everything else. That's just, you can't call that anything other than tradition. And those are traditions that are forced to end. Let's take a call. 304, you're on the air. What do you think about tonight's show?
This is Enos Hogbin from West Virginia.
Hello.
I'm going to mute this here.
Okay.
There we go.
There you go. So West Virginia came up tonight in the show. Did it ring any bells? Do you have any experience with the circus yourself, sir?
Yeah, I do. It's a long story. Starts in West Virginia, 1986, when I decided I was going to drive a motorcycle down to Brazil. So going from the United States into Mexico is pretty easy.
Yes, but sir, let me just say, I appreciate long stories, but we have a minute and a half, so you got to get to the best parts and tie it up with a nice resolution.
All right. I'm not sure we're going to do it in a minute and a half. We'll give it a try.
Well, if it's 9
There's
o'clock.
There's a dead circus between the border of Nicaragua and Honduras down there. And apparently they tried coming out, and they got as far as the northern border post there, and then they tried to go south again, and they were denied entry, so the circus died there in the netherworld between the two border posts. And about the same time I was crossing through there, and I rolled in, got out into that place, and there was a dead circus there. There was everything there. The big animals were gone, and the circus was filled with squatters. So squatters everywhere.
You're talking about just an abandoned circus?
An abandoned circus.
Okay.
On the border between Nicaragua and Guatemala, or Nicaragua and Honduras there. And the whole community had grown up there in that Netherland between the two border posts. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen.
Wow.
That the squatters had moved in, taken over the vehicles. They never assembled the rides or nothing. It wasn't like it was functioning.
Mm-hmm.
The big animals were gone. They had a lot of monkeys and dogs and stuff down there that kept as pets, I guess. And there was no food. There were little shacks along the roadside there where they were advertising, it was a cafe, but there was no food available. There wasn't even a cup of coffee available. The strangest darn thing I'd ever seen. A trip through South America on a motorcycle is surreal, I will tell you.
Well, that does sound surreal. Hey, you have a circus experience, but it was just the residue. It was just the ruins of a circus, and nobody.
Yes, it was.
So nobody told you what happened to everybody. Nobody told you like what the last show was all about. Why they just left everything where it was, like it was Joe Biden in Afghanistan.
No, I don't think the local people even knew the reason why it was there. They just knew it was a place to move into and squat.
Wow.
You know, a place to live, and it was the King Blackman Circus. I still remember the name.
Well, thank you for
driving out.
Was that really was that all? Like that was the crux of it, because it's a good story. That in itself was a good story. You went on an international motorcycle cruise, and you found yourself in a an abandoned circus that is just, I don't know, the animals are gone, but a whole new crop of people moved in to inhabit it. But if there's more, is there more to that, or is that it?
Oh, there's lots more. There's that cruise south into Nicaragua, the first border post. Now they're having a war.
No, we don't have any time for that. Is it circus related?
And it's not circus related, but there's a whole lot more on both sides.
Okay, then
you want to hear it?
I do. I definitely want to hear it, but we can't do it right now. So at least we got the circus part out of the way. Then you can call in and tell us about your other motorcycle adventures through war-torn Nicaragua. And we'll... No, I seriously want to hear that, don't you? It's not funny. War is not funny. I want to hear that. But it's just crazy how that's where the story could have gone tonight. That's something else. And obviously he got back in good shape, and he's fine. So please, sir, call and actually email me so we can keep track of each other, because I would love to hear that story sometime. Now, you want to hear who the badass for the evening is? Oh, it is somebody that is so... It's so apropos.
That's some badass shit. It's pretty badass.
Oh, who is it? It's Roland the Farter. Who? What do you mean, Roland the Farter? Oh boy. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a good one for you tonight. A nice little way of getting a badass who actually used his ass a lot to create his fame. His ass was his claim to fame. Tonight's badass is Roland the Farter. Roland was the favorite professional flatulist of King Henry II and was gifted swaths of land for his windy performances. His job was relatively straightforward. Each Christmas, during the royal court's chaotic pageant, he performed a dance that ended with one jump, one whistle, and one fart. Hop. That's it. A jump, a whistle, a fart. Executed simultaneously. See, I did it wrong. I did it in order. Roland's performance was done so well that Henry gifted him a manor and 30 acres of land. Can you imagine 30 acres of land just for farting? Some of you guys do that for free. You're disgusting. The historical reference can be found in the 13th century English Book of Fees, a text that was recorded that records feudal land holdings in England or land effectively held by individuals directly from the crown. Roland's requirement of performing saltum siffletum pitum, a jump, a whistle, a fart, was well recorded. Specifically, he was granted a sergeanty. That's a term. I hope it's called sergeanty or sergeanty. A term used to describe a form of feudal tenure, which was conditional upon rendering a specific personal service to the monarch, other than knight service. This is how Roland was able to obtain his manor and lands. However, Roland's historical record is rather scarce, as investigated by Valerie Allen, who wrote a comprehensive historical account of Roland in her 2007 book on farting. It's called On Farting, Language and Laughter in the Middle Ages. Her research based on fee ledgers showed that Roland was possibly the first working under King Henry I, and then with King Henry II. By the time Henry III came along, Roland had been dismissed, with the king finding his service and talent rather indecent. With this, Roland had to surrender his land and his manor. Oh, that sucks. I'd say at least leave him his land. It was unlikely that Roland could have actually lived the length of the reign of 2 kings and reached a third. However, that's what was likely was what was likely was that he was a much loved and coveted figure, and his story has been the source of much joy and amusement. Surprisingly, Roland was not some historical anomaly who held this unique position in society's annals. This profession was widespread in Ireland throughout medieval times. For example, a tradition of the 8th century Irish records list farters, okay? These records actually list, there's a category of people, farters, as those who held retainers in courts. Roland's Irish contemporaries allegedly occupied a table at the banquet hall of the High King of Ireland. Thank you, Roland. Jeez. I keep doing that to myself. All right, well, I thank you all. Let me get over to Super Chats. Let me get to the gold pills real quick. Hello, Joe Elaine. Looking forward to this discussion tonight. I hope you liked it. Garden Girl, great show last night, Frank. Thank you. I've got a lot of things to go over with that soon. Porpoiseful, Sea Blanche, Dark Heart Hemi, Answering Machine by Rupert Holmes. Try that one next. Okay. You got it. And Joe Elaine, Sean Joe with Cookies Galore. Just Jesse, thank you. Swickly says, too much penciling off will make you go blind, allegedly. That's what I hear. Esther G. Frank, thanks for the memories. Thank you. And great show, Frank, says Joe Elaine. I appreciate you guys and gals greatly. And now let me go over to make sure that I did not leave anything on the table elsewhere. Got a couple Rumble rants here. 925 says, dumber than a box of wet hair. See? She's got all the sayings that kid does. Northern Pike says, horses chasing women that are in heat. Oh my, I've seen that before. Really? Seriously? Well, let's see here. Okay, end of Americana. Now I'm all depressed and shit. Well, these are the little things. Sometimes the little things that you don't notice. But that other people, that's why it's so great to interview people and talk to them and get their stories, because there are little things that go away, stories that people, the good times for some people, the golden ages for some people, that they're actually in the middle of something that's changing and maybe leaves. And it's good to get that on record. A perspective you didn't have. Northern Pike says, I got high in the old train cars. I did not care if they carded me at the bars. We skipped school and jammed and sang, played guitar in the old train cars. See, we always get the lyrics. All the lyrics abound. I thank you guys for everything. Cody says, of course, the diversity. Thank you for the diversity support. Diverse guests. All right, tomorrow's going to be a great one. We've got some time penciled in with Jay Gulanello to talk about the world. I've got some media I want to comment on. There's a whole bunch of things news related that I'm sure that will set Jay off. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we had learned about pH. We're going to talk about pH and veganism and some things that my buddy Ian Jacklin said. I told him about it too. I said, I asked him for some things. I said, listen in the second half too. If you call in, if you want to throw something out there. Ian's very defensive. He thinks that Jay Gulanello is a Western medicine shill. He doesn't know him. I said, no. I promise you, it's not like that. There's things that are different where you guys come from, but I promise you're on the same team as far as the world goes. So this is why I'm saying I didn't want to make this a debate at all, and I just wanted to take aspects of that conversation and expand on it with Jay, who comes from a different, direction in his training and the depths to which he went with that. So it'll be good. And then we have some bonus time together tomorrow night. So make sure you take a nap. Make sure you stretch out. Have yourself some good, get your fluids in. Don't be dehydrated. We're doing some overtime tomorrow. Thanks for everything, guys and gals. See you soon.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience, and now our super chatters, starting with Cody, Jay Britz, Revolution, and Stostube. Thank you to our Rumble Ranters, and our Gold Pillars as well. I will be releasing that treasure trove on the D Live, and we'll see you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Become a sponsor, my friends. Become a sponsor. Sponsor the future of Quite Frankly today. Good night.